House of the Dragon, the first Game of Thrones spin-off, is finally here, and there were a lot of fascinating aspects to watch out for, much like in Game of Thrones before it. 1. The opening sequence, in which Viserys is chosen as Jaehaerys' successor, takes place at Harrenhal, the destroyed fortress where Arya, Hot Pie, and Gendry are imprisoned in Game of Thrones. When Rhaenyra subsequently serves as her father's cupbearer, we see echoes of Arya's position. Rhaenyra, like Arya, prefers to be a warrior rather than a lady of the court. 2. Rhaenyra's flight above King's Landing reminds us of the last time we saw a Targaryen do so when Daenerys burnt the city on Drogon's back. This sequence is also accompanied by the iconic Targaryen theme. The visual and audio echoes emphasize the contrast between the two journeys, as well as the reality that we live in a radically different era. Rhaenyra's dragon flight is a casual joyride, something so common that the people of King's Landing don't even notice. 3. As Rhaenyra soars toward the dragon pit, we get an excellent glimpse of it. This is the site in Game of Thrones that is in ruins by the time we see it, where important meetings take place in the last 2 seasons, but, of course, during House of the Dragon it's very much intact and in use. 4. The throne chamber is another iconic setting from Game of Thrones that we see in House of the Dragon in a completely different rendition, naturally, given that it has gone through hundreds of years and several governments in the meanwhile. The modifications to the Iron Throne are perhaps the most intriguing. The earlier one seen in House of the Dragon is far more fearsome, with more swords and supposedly sharper edges. It's closer to the throne described in George R.R. Martin's books. 5. Corlys Velaryon discusses the Triarchy alliance formed in the Free Cities, as well as the Stepstone Force led by Kragas Dryhar. It's only a quick moment, but without giving anything away, it might become more relevant later, depending on how closely the program follows what happened in Martin's novel Fire and Blood, on which the show is based. 6. Meanwhile, Rhaenyra and Alysanne talk about Princess Nymeria and her 10,000 ships, whose narrative isn't especially related to House of the Dragon but is one of HBO's other Game of Thrones spin-offs. Yes, this is the same Nymeria after whom Arya named her direwolf. 7. Aemma adds she wouldn't be shocked if she hatched a real dragon after her miserable pregnancy, evoking Daenerys and the stillbirth of her son Rhaego, whom Mirri Maz Duur recalls as having scales and wings. Daenerys, of course, breeds actual dragons to become the mother of dragons. 8. The contrast between the tournament and Aemma dying in delivery underscores what she remarked to Rhaenyra earlier: the childbed is our battlefield. The visual connection between the two scenarios emphasizes how the men are at war while Aemma is battling for her life. 9. Viserys names his son Balon after his father. Balon was Jaehaerys, the king we saw in the opening scene of Viserys' Grand Faith. Before the events of the series, Balon died of a burst belly. 10. As in Game of Thrones, there are many elaborate elements in the outfits that convey a lot about the characters and their houses. For example, House Targaryen's garments and armor are full of dragon patterns. Viserys' crown, however, bears the sigils of all the great houses, emphasizing the fact that the 7 kingdoms are unified and at peace at this time. 11. There are a few Rhaenys Velaryon family links at the tournament that you may have overlooked. She is, as you may recall, a Targaryen on her father Aemon's side, making her Viserys' cousin. In the opening scene, she forfeited her claim to be his heir. However, she refers to the Baratheon knight as cousin because she is connected to him through her mother, Jocelyn Baratheon. Lena and Leonor, Rhaenys' children with Corlys, are also present at the tourney and appear on screen a few times, though they do not speak in this episode. They are expected to grow more significant as the series goes. 12. Daemon is described by Otto Hightower as a second Meager, or worse, which, as you might expect, is not a compliment. Meager was known as Meager the Cruel because he was a vicious, ruthless ruler, as his moniker suggests. 13. Rhaenyra and Viserys in front of Balerian's skull. Balerion was Aegon the Conqueror's dragon, and we saw his skull multiple times in Game of Thrones, most notably when Cersei tested her anti-dragon weapon on it. 14. What's noteworthy about this moment is that not only is Viserys' narrative paired with glimpses of Ned's ancestor, Rickon Stark, vowing devotion to Rhaenyra, but we also see many close-ups of Viserys' dagger, which Game of Thrones viewers will recognize. Yes, it's the Valyrian steel catspaw dagger, the one used in Bran's assassination attempt in Season 1, and the one Arya uses to murder the Night King in Season 8. 15. One of the most crucial moments in this episode is when Viserys tells Rhaenyra about Aegon the Conqueror's dream, how he invaded Westeros not merely for power, but predicted the end of the world as we know it. Viserys is reminded of Aegon's Song of Ice and Fire, or the prophecy that became Game of Thrones, particularly the arrival of the White Walkers. Aegon, like Viserys, believed that a Targaryen must rule the 7 kingdoms united in order to put an end to the darkness. Of course, we know that this isn't exactly what occurs in Game of Thrones, but it may be more in line with Martin's intentions for the conclusion of the novels. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to comment, subscribe, and give us a like.